So welcome, part 3, here we go. Cancer themes and the Cancer archetype. So Cancer is cardinal water, right? So this is active principle. It's an emotional type of energy, right? Symbolized by the crab. But if you'll notice, if you dig far enough back in the history of astrology, you'll notice that Cancer is sometimes symbolized by a lobster or some other crustacean, and those are equally fitting. The idea behind the archetype of the Cancer sign is that we're dealing with a creature who has a very soft, tender inner nature and a hard, crusty outer shell, right? So as long as it's a crustacean and it fits that theme, it basically counts as a symbol for representing Cancer, which is why you will see, especially this is really common around the Middle Ages, to see lobsters especially associated with Cancer instead of crabs. And I want to say that if you go back that far in linguistic history, it was actually the same word for both creatures, okay? So that's why you might sometimes see a lobster or other crustaceans standing in as a symbol for the Cancer zodiac sign. But the Cancer archetype has to do with this lunar, feminine, mother type of energy, right? It has to do with the womb, with the moon, with germination, the sprouting of seeds, right? The very first initial stages in the act of growth, right? After you begin planting, some of that is what happens in the womb, right? That sprouting of the seed. So this is a very nurturing type of energy. It's about caregiving. It's about, Cancer is often associated with healing. I would give it more of the nature of the potential for emotional healing rather than, say, physical healing. Right? And that's because a lot of our deepest wounds that we carry with us throughout life, or that we carry the longest in life, are wounds that we received when we were very, very young, right? As children, during those earliest nurturing stages. And so when we're talking about taking advantage of the healing capacity, that nurturing, mothering, caretaking type of energy has as potential, it's going to be healing of those emotional wounds that we can suffer, that cause us to react later on in life in ways that we don't even recognize, that we don't even consciously connect to that original hurt. And so I kind of want to encourage you to tap into that way of looking at this full moon tonight, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the prompts. Now, Cancer also represents the invisible man. And I want to talk about this for a minute because I think we kind of ignore it a little bit, especially in Western astrology. We don't give the archetype of the invisible man as much attention as it truly deserves. But what is this, the invisible man? This is the unrecognized, let's say, masculine nature. So for instance, like the stay-at-home dad, that could be an embodiment of the invisible man, right? A man showing his emotions, right? We kind of shy away culturally and socially from doing that in a lot of ways, and in a lot of different cultures, right? We shy away from that. So men aren't supposed to be emotional. So the emotional man is invisible to us as a culture, as a society. We don't see that side of the masculine, do we? And it's because we don't allow ourselves to really. It's not because it doesn't exist. It's not because it's not there. It might be because we fear disapproval, and therefore we tend to shove down rather than to express those emotions, or we do it in private, where it can be hidden, where others can't see. But that's kind of what we're getting at. What's another expression of the invisible man? The vagabond, right? The the transient, the homeless person, right? Which is really, if we think about it, this is almost a very skewed expression of Cancer, the homeless person. We tend to put blinders on towards that as society as well, right? And oftentimes in big enough cities, we want to pretend that those issues don't exist around homelessness. And so we almost treat people as if you don't have a place, you're not really human, right? So this is another way that we can see that expression of the invisible man through the Cancer archetype. But the Cancer archetype, let's talk about the creature itself, right? Cancer, the crab. So this is a creature that carries its home with it, right? On its back. It's soft-hearted, but it has that tough exterior. It has pincers. It's defensive. It kind of sidesteps. It scuttles, right? It doesn't come at things head on. So this is an ability to make oneself at home anywhere. An ability to make oneself comfortable regardless of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And so wherever you find Cancer in your natal chart, you probably have some skill in that, or maybe where you find the moon in your natal chart, you maybe have some skill with making yourself comfortable or feel at home no matter where that you are, right? But let's explore some prompts for what you can let go of with this full moon. And I did make some notes. Where did I just shove my charts? I don't normally work off the charts. I normally work off the screen. So I'm kind of thrown for a loop. Okay, so here's my notes. So grab a pen and paper. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, so some of these are repeats that we've gone over before on previous full moons in Cancer. And then I kind of have some new stuff. And really what I would encourage you to do is go with whatever feels natural and comfortable. And I've lost my pen. But one of these is out of ink, so I have to not grab that pen, right? So just kind of go, like I said, where you feel led. Where are you mothering? Or more precisely, smothering in life? I have a friend who affectionately refers to her mom as Smother. I thought that was kind of clever. For some of us, probably a very appropriate description. Or you could consider, are you attached to being mothered? Maybe we didn't get enough mothering when we were very, very young and have a need to feel mothered, right? That could be something that we're working with as well. Is there a sense of clannishness that's stopping you from appreciating the differences in others? Hi, Danielle. Good to see you. Where are you hiding? Now, you could be hiding out from yourself, or you could be hiding out from the world. So consider this from both perspectives. But where have you grown a shell or put up a wall that's keeping you from being vulnerable, right? Where are you kind of overprotecting this, maybe from a fear of exposure or a fear of vulnerability? Okay. How are the defenses you've erected in this area of your life holding you back or limiting your experience or limiting what you can achieve? Think about for a moment, what are you being overprotective of and why? This one's a good one. Where are you avoiding commitment? What is it that you're sidestepping instead of facing head on, right? We're doing that sideways crab scuttle like we talked about. And can you release your need to control the outcome? That would be my big question. And then some new stuff that I want you to chew on. What can you do in your personal life to set the stage for success? What is it in your personal life, perhaps, that you need to let go of that's holding you back from success? And then this other thing that I want to bring up, this is kind of interesting because it's a reflection of where I've been spending some time lately. And I've realized it happens to be very, very appropriate. And while we're talking about things that are appropriate to a full moon in sidereal Cancer, trine Mars as he moves into a sidereal fire sign. My roommate, this is the funniest thing to me as an astrologer, when she came home from work today, turned around and went right back out to go hiking to local hot springs to enjoy some nice brisk hot springs weather. And I had to chuckle because that's a very appropriate thing to be doing at the full moon in Cancer, with that Mars influencing how that expresses, right? So here's the thing to be thinking about around emotional healing and Cancer and nurturing, and the fact that Cancer's the natural ruler of the 4th house, which has to do with parents. I want you to consider if perhaps whatever this thing that you're working with tonight in your Cancer house, consider whether it isn't an opportunity for you to do some emotional healing through what's called reparenting, which is the thing I'm only just now learning about. Probably very common to some of you, but I'm new to that territory through my own explorations and learnings of things related to coming through my divorce last year. I've been learning a lot down this avenue, and I've been finding a lot of real benefit from applying the principles of reparenting. And the idea is recognizing where you can step in and act as your own parent in a way that perhaps wasn't done for you as a child when you maybe needed it most, or maybe you still struggle with some things and you need additional support as an adult in given areas. But being a parent to yourself, right? This is around having rules and having boundaries and having responsibilities and things like, bedtimes and good diet, but it's also around having compassion for yourself and being gentle with yourself when you screw up, and recognizing that we all make mistakes, right? And just because we're adults doesn't mean we're supposed to do it all perfect every time. Reparenting is also around things like being present for yourself emotionally and holding space for yourself emotionally. So when something is moving inside you the way it might with Cancer energy, right? If you need to stop and step out of what you're doing and just give yourself a moment to feel whatever that is and assimilate it and acknowledge it, then do that. But sometimes what we experienced as children were parenting techniques that are about, what are you crying for? I'll give you something to cry about kind of stuff, right? And that's not what we need, right? When you're moved to emotion, you need to make space for that emotion. Otherwise, it just kind of gets stuck where it was, and that can hinder you later on in life when you bump up against similar feeling things or similar feeling experiences. And so it's really just about being aware and being cognizant of, well, what are those things for me? And where do I need to be a little bit gentler with myself? Where do I need to be a little bit more compassionate with myself? But also, where do I need to be a little bit more firm with myself? Where do I need to maybe establish some discipline and some regularity and some consistency? So be thinking about all of these concepts that apply to the traditional notion of parenting, and how you can take those same concepts and apply them to yourself with your own crazy quirks, hang-ups, and bugaboos, even as an adult, with all your adult needs and adult whatnots and worries and concerns going around, because you can still benefit from applying those same techniques, but it's about taking what you learned to do that was healthy, right, as a parenting style, and applying those techniques to yourself, not just reserving them for your children. But I want to slip in a caveat here. And that caveat is, don't be taking those crappy parenting habits that we learned from our own parents and applying them to yourself. That's easy to do. So it takes a real awareness and a real cognizance of, what ways was I raised that are not ideal or not ultimately supportive of developing healthy emotional regulation and balance. Take those and throw them out. Don't be applying them to yourself, okay? Be the good parent, not the bad parent. But reparenting. And if you want to learn more about reparenting, I would encourage you to Google. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of really useful information on YouTube. I've been learning a lot on YouTube. Some very wonderful folks out in the world who can teach you techniques. There's a lot of folks on Instagram, therapists that have Instagram accounts. Follow them. You learn a lot, and all of it, I think, is highly beneficial and helpful. So Danielle says, relearning what is healthy expression of emotions. Yes, because sometimes we didn't learn what is healthy as a child, right? I can tell you, so this is interesting, some of the stuff that I've been encountering lately in my personal life around parenting. But I can tell you that pretty much anytime a child is acting out behaviorally, there's something going on underneath that emotionally, right? Here's the thing that we don't realize. The same is true for us, right? As adults, and sometimes we act out behaviorally too, right? We just do it in different ways, but that doesn't mean they're no less destructive or at least counterproductive, right? But if we can recognize that when we're acting out or having that urge to act out as adults, that's a clue that there's something there underneath emotionally where we need to maybe step in and do some reparenting. That gives us the opportunity to take some time out for ourselves and do that, right? Give yourself a hug. These things help and they work, right? So grab your pen and paper before I babble on too much tonight. And we'll recap these prompts. And what I want you to do is take a moment to think about what it is that you're ready to release from your life around this kind of theme that we've been talking about, or from your experience, right? It could be anything. It could be a person. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the broadcast. Let's scroll back up those notes and recap, right? It could be a habit, a pattern of thought, a pattern of behavior. It could be energy. It could be situation. It could be people. It could be a belief. It could be your mom's head on repeat in your head, or your mom's voice on repeat in your head, right? Like whatever it is that you need to let go of, let's work with that. And what I want you to do is write it down on a piece of paper. And then when we're done, we're going to come back around and do our releasing practice. I'm going to recap. So the prompts here. Where are you mothering or smothering, or are attached to being mothered? Is a sense of clannishness stopping you from appreciating others' differences? There's a lot to learn by exposing yourself to other people, other cultures, other beliefs, other foods even, right? Other cultures, anything. What are you hiding? And not just hiding from the world, but sometimes we hide from ourselves, right? Where have you grown a shell or put up a wall that's keeping you safe from having to be vulnerable? Vulnerability is life, right? If you can't be vulnerable, you're not really living. And how are those defenses that you've erected holding you back or limiting your experience? What is it that you're overprotective of, and why? Where are you avoiding commitment or sidestepping instead of facing head on? Can you release your need to control outcomes? And what might you need to let go of in your personal life in order to set the stage for success? Okay, so everyone take a few minutes and write down, and then we'll come back and we'll share and we'll light things up. Okay, here we go. So if anyone needs more time, let me know in the comments. And I want to remind you that you can do this practice for your sun sign as well. I don't know what I did with my lighter. I was late for the broadcast again. And I had to go get my bowl because I almost started the broadcast without it. I was supposed to be starting it. My dog picked that moment to need to use the bathroom. You know how it is. And I can't quite open my drawer all the way to get my lighter. But I know I have a lighter. There we go. All right. So, everyone ready? Danielle says, I'll just repeat. I'm relearning what are healthy ways to express emotions. And that's good. That's good. Non-violently. That's what comes to mind, but I don't mean to be humorous about it, but it's kind of an interesting full moon, isn't it? Keep in mind too that the eclipses are still active at this full moon. So I know some of us, I wrote down in my planner, some of us are due for eclipse news today, tomorrow-ish, depending on which eclipse was affecting you personally, coming through December and January. Either this would have been the one January 10th. If you were affected by that one, there could be news for you around today or tomorrow. So here's what I wrote. This is kind of interesting. And it is very appropriate to Cancer because it has to do with home. And it's interesting because it has to do with a realization I only recently just came to and didn't realize how appropriate it was for a full moon in Cancer. The transits have been unpleasant, Danielle. Especially the transits of Jupiter, at least for me. But that's because I'm Gemini rising, so you might not have that same experience of Jupiter. So here's what I wrote. I wrote that, so for me, this is in, if I'm Gemini rising, this is, what did I say? Second house, full moon, right? So this has to do with possessions and income, wealth, expenses. So I recently came to a realization that at some point I'm going to have to move. Not that I really want to. I never really intended to. But at some point I'm going to have to move. And probably in the near term as opposed to the long term. Let's say maybe in the next year, the next 2 years tops. So knowing this opens up like a whole bunch of questions because it wasn't something that was on my radar to do. This was supposed to be my forever home. But I realize that I am going to have to move, which means that not only do I have to think about, well, where do I want to move to when I wasn't even planning on moving? Where do I want to move to when I'm not the same person that I was, 20 or 30 years ago when I had, like, here's the cool places I would live if I could live anywhere where I want to. Well, now I can't live anywhere where I want to, but I don't know if I still think those places are as cool, right? the world has changed. And I don't know. So now I have this whole like big question that needs an answer. Doesn't have really any urgent timetable, but it needs an answer, right? But also that means that, well, I have all this crap in my house that I'm gonna have to go through and figure out what to do with, right? That's remnants of a life that I don't live anymore. A life that was revolved around a family where 4 people occupied the same house, right? So there's all this extraneous stuff. There's stuff that people left behind when they moved out. There's stuff that the ex left behind. There's like all this and stuff that of my own, right? And we've lived here for 10 years. That's a long time to accumulate some crap, right? Danielle says, come to Delaware. You know, I've thought about it. I thought about Delaware. I thought about Rhode Island. I've thought about Canada. I've thought about lots of places. And I'm kind of just keeping an open mind and looking for ideas and inspiration. So yes, I will take any and all suggestions as things to explore. I just know that I don't want to live anywhere where it's any drier than it is here. Which I was really surprised because I just went to Sedona in November for the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference. And I did not realize that Sedona, Arizona has nearly twice as much annual precipitation as the Boise area. If you could believe that. Delaware has no taxes. You know, there's that. Something to consider there. So yeah, it's been an interesting puzzle to have like rolling around in my brain when Ohio is humid. See, I don't know if I want humid. I want more humid than this. We get 12 inches a year here in this part of Idaho. We're right on the edge of the Nevada desert or the Utah desert, something. Anyway, we're right on the edge of the desert. So we get snow because it's high enough altitude that we get snow, but 12 inches, 23 inches is what they get in Sedona. But Sedona's freaking expensive. So I don't know about Sedona. I don't know. I got something to think about. But anyway, second house full moon, right? Cancer. How appropriate. Less snow in Delaware. See, that's the thing is, you know, it has to be less snow because I'm not a big fan of shoveling. I grew up in North Dakota. I remember the winter of 85. I have no desire to repeat that on an annual basis. So here's what I wrote. I wrote that I release my emotional and psychological attachments to all my possessions and belongings and any of those left behind by loved ones so that I may release any material possessions that might be holding me back from healing, from growth, from new experiences, and from new experiences of home so that I may best make the home I need most at this next stage in my life. That's what I wrote. So ideally, it's releasing the stuff that's getting in the way of what we know the next step has to be for me, right? And hopefully this is what you're doing with your own releasing. And that's really what it comes down to, is if I have to embark on this journey of going through all of this crap and deciding what goes and what stays, I want to do it with presence of mind. I want to do it with rationality. I want to do it with logic. I don't want to do it with emotional reactivity, right? I want to do it from a place of making the best decision that I can, not only for myself, but for my family and for the future and for healing, right? So that's kind of the idea. And so hopefully you've written down what it is you want to let go of. And what you're going to do when you do your releasing is burn it or tear it up, right? I want you, if you're going to burn it, do it in a fire safe place. Be smart about it. Or you can just tear it up. That works too. But take a moment, think about what it is that you're letting go of, write it down. And then when you're ready to release it, you're going to state that out loud, that intention. and burn your paper or tear it up. You're going to state the intention to release it with gratitude and love. Yes, a new start is good for the soul, and so is taking out the trash, Danielle. So it is my intention to release my emotional and psychological attachments to all possessions and belongings and to any of those left behind by loved ones, so that I may release any material possessions that may be holding me back from healing, from growth, and from new experiences of home, so that I may best make the home that I need most in this next stage of my life. I'm burning mine. If you're going to burn it, please make sure that it burns completely. You can do that in a fireplace or a grill or a fire pit. If you're an apartment dweller, empty out your kitchen sink, and then you have water right there. You can just burn it in your kitchen sink. Or like I said, you can tear it up. And you're done, and it feels so good, right? And those ashes, those are really good for your flower bed or your garden. So feel free to repurpose all of that spent energy. But I release these possessions with love and gratitude for the purposes and needs that they served while I had those purposes and needs. And if I don't any longer, then I release them to fill someone else's purposes and needs, right, in the future. So full moons are also a fantastic time for charging crystals if you use crystals. I don't have a lot for you in terms of announcements or anything like that, other than it's not too late. Get your ultimate astrological planner for the year if you haven't got it already. Although I will tell you, I think I've been telling you for some time. So it's available in Lahiri as of this year, if you're a Lahiri 𝘄𝗵𝗄 user rather than Fagan Bradley. However, you can't make that selection on the website when you go to order it. And I, for some reason, can't make changes to that because there's some sort of weird buggy thing going on with the website where, yeah, it's not letting me edit the variations properly. So if you want the Lahiri, you can order the Fagan Bradley or you can order the tropical. Those choices are already built in. But if you want the Lahiri, place your order, choose Sidereal, and then in the order notes, just make a note that you want the Lahiri 𝘄𝗵𝗄, and I'll get it to you. Okay. Danielle says, yes, let stuff go. I love the idea of beaches. I like the idea of living near water, Danielle. I kind of want to be close enough to a major metropolitan area, but I don't necessarily want to live in a big city. What about those hurricanes in Delaware, though? How often does that happen? That's what I want to know. Anyway, let's see. My notes. I clicked away from them. What was left that I needed to talk about? Oh, I was giving you the link for the planner, because if you don't have your planner, it's not too late to go get it. But like I was saying, if you want the Lahiri, you got to let me know in the notes because you can't make that choice yet. Also, if you want a different time zone, I can offer that. There's a small upgrade charge if you want a different time zone, but you can customize your time zone as of this year. Yesterday was a tornado. Oh, that's exciting. We had those in North Dakota too. That's something to look forward to, a tornado. What else in my notes that I need to talk to you about? Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. This is the best place to stay up to date with the broadcasts because I'm not always so good about sending out the emails. You all know this about me. I'm real not. I used to be more consistent. My intention this year is to get re-consistent. Last year I was not so consistent. The year before I didn't do too bad. But if you want to make sure that you get notified every time we do a full or a new moon broadcast, or every time I go live for the Sidereal Insights Astro Update, which is every other Monday, we talk about current planetary transits from Fagan Bradley zodiac perspective, then you definitely want to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the little notification bell icon so that you get notified whenever I upload a video. Danielle says, I live next to a lake, 30 minutes to beaches. Philadelphia and Baltimore is a 2-hour drive. See, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. I could consider that. I like the idea of living near an ocean, and I always wanted to live on the Pacific coast. Like Oregon holds appeal, but then, you know, Fukushima. And I'm not all that cool with cesium-137, you know? Stuff's got a half-life of 60 years. So I'm thinking Pacific coast is not on the map anymore for places that I might want to live. Delaware. We'll think about it. We'll see what else comes up. Maybe I'll just travel a lot and try on a bunch of places before I decide. But I'm open to recommendations. If anyone else has like, hey, this is some place I've always wanted to live and here's why, let me know in the comments. I'll take your recommendations. $800 a year on our taxes. That's not bad. That's not bad. Taxes are always a consideration, especially if you plan on living somewhere forever or if you plan on owning a home. And I am a homeowner, so. Anything else, folks? Questions, comments, feedback? It's kind of a nice, pleasant, comfortable full moon. It could be real easy to be too comfortable, though. So if you have important things that you need to finish up or clear out, do it. Just know that you might have to crack your own whip. But there's that reparenting that we were talking about, right? Holding yourself accountable, self-discipline, all those sorts of things. Lovely having y'all, and I hope you have found something worthwhile to take away from tonight's broadcast, and we will see you again, I believe, and that's one thing that's not in my notes. I believe the next time I will see you is Monday the 10th. For our next Sidereal Insights Astro update at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And now I'm drawing a blank on, is that 8:30 GMT? And like 1:30 in the morning, Australian Eastern Daylight Time? Something crazy like that. I'm not 100% sure and I don't have it right in front of me. But anyway, Monday, at 1:30 on the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page, we'll be doing the next broadcast of the Sidereal Insights Astro Update. And Danielle says, yes, lots of bad news for folks I've been hearing. Yeah, the transits kind of sucked lately. I think a lot of it has to do with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That's a pretty significant aspect for us to be feeling. And I think it's had a lot of repercussion for a lot of folks in multiple ways, not only from how it affects us directly by how that particular conjunction touched our own natal charts, but also the fact that we're living in a world that mundane astrology is taking place all around us all the time, right? And we live in that world. We can't help but be affected. Even if it didn't touch something directly in our natal charts, we can't help be affected by that Saturn-Pluto conjunction. It's a big deal. Big deal. It means a lot of interesting changes in the world. Thank you all for joining me. It's been really wonderful to have you with me this evening, and we will see you again next time, Monday, 1:30.